The Tigers, Billikens, the Cougars, just a few area college mascots. But where did the idea of school mascots even start? We're digging into it today. We are excited to learn more about the history of mascots as part of our Back to School series sponsored by St. Luke's Urgent Care with historian Raffi Andonian. Thank you so much for coming in.
Here I am, and I even wore,
swag.
That's right, I wore my SLU blue, which is was my MBA degree school, and I wore my Harristow yellow, which is where I teach, so I figured I'd have to come represent for something like this.
Absolutely, representing locally. Love that. Okay, so where did the history of mascots start?
Believe it or not, it came from opera, which I love opera as well.
Okay.
In opera in the 1880s in Paris, there's an opera named Le Mascot, and the story goes that there was a farmer that was having bad luck, and in having bad luck, there was his brother who brought in a woman who was supposed to be a good luck charm of sorts for him, and that turned around his fortune. So that's how we get the term mascot,
like
not terribly long ago. Yeah, a real woman. But because the opera was called Mascot, that's how the term actually sticks. But it's not the first time we're using symbols or animals or other things. You know, this opera is capturing it, in that case, a woman. Yeah. But prior to that, thousands of years, King Hammurabi and the ancient Egyptians had examples of using war dogs to symbolize fierceness and what would happen if you attack them, and that connects to your alma mater, the Bulldogs, the Drake Bulldogs. Now Drake is a male duck, so they're like little ducklings, so they used to be cute. However, pretty quickly it changed over to Bulldogs. But more in the ancient tradition, right? The fierce dogs. And by the way, I was watching Drake play some March Madness last year in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament right here in St. Louis. So they had a great year last year.
Did have a good
year. So that's an example of that tradition carrying over, going back thousands of years, which I think is really fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I always just thought we had the little bulldog who bounced along. Okay, so how did mascots then? You're talking about Drake and watching them play basketball. And I remember in college, our bulldog mascot would dribble a basketball across the court before games start. So how did the mascots and the sports things come together?
Well, there's a couple historic uses of them that continue before it gets to sports, which is really valuable because the concept of using them in history in various ways really carries over. For example, think about Lady Columbia. We're talking about people and gods and symbols and animals. Lady Columbia is one that's depicting United States history a lot. If you look early on, it's a nurturing republic, okay? And later on, it's, of course, the Manifest Destiny as a famous painting of expansion of West, bringing civilization to the West. That type of stuff translates all the way to the Civil War, also in the form of animals and symbolizing the United States. So I'll give you an example that's right here in Missouri and connects directly to the use of it in sports, as you point out. In Missouri, during the Civil War, you have a group of people known as the Tigers. Does that sound familiar?
I've heard of
Tigers?
them. Yeah, I think they have a big game tonight.
During the Civil War, Missouri was a very challenging place because there was a lot of guerrilla warfare, and one of those people was Bloody Bill Anderson. Well, there was resistance to Bloody Bill Anderson in Columbia, Missouri, and they became known as the Missouri Tigers. Now, remember, the sports version of the Tigers begins in 1890, which is not long after the Civil War. You're only a generation after the Civil War. So these guys memorialize the Civil War soldiers in the context of sports with Missouri Tigers. That's how it starts here in Missouri. Today, the Tigers, of course, the mascot is known as Truman the Tiger. Truman didn't get attached to the name until the 1980s. That's later, of course, because of the president from Missouri. But the Tigers originates for a long time ago. Now, using it more broadly in sports, it's actually the same period that we're talking about throughout the late 19th and early 20th century. In the late 19th century, what else is going on? Rise of baseball. In baseball, there's all kinds of uses of mascots, including human mascots that are taking place at that time. Even a story here in St. Louis where you have Charlie Faust, who meets John McGraw and ends up being a famous baseball good luck charm. Now, let's think about this good luck charm at sports. What does that connect to? The SLU Billikens. Because Billiken is, you were asking earlier, what's actually a Billiken? It is a good luck charm doll. It was a huge popular culture phenomenon in 1908, 1910. By the way, the artistic depiction was created by a Missouri art teacher. How is that for some cool local history? And it became a national phenomenon. It was on plates, it was on jewelry, it was dolls. It became this good luck charm, kind of like a Buddha is how we would think about it. And so one of the guys, the football coach for SLU, at the time they had a football program, looked like a Billiken. I'm not sure that's necessarily a compliment. And that attachment from a sports writer it stuck. And that's how St. Louis University got the Billikens name, which is pretty cool to think about.
I'm almost embarrassed that I've never thought that deeply about mascots, to realize there's so much history and culture and thought that goes into them, but I will never look at them the same.
It's been a long history, and you think about the use of, whether it's gods and goddesses, to humans, to animals. Of course, even in the Civil War, there's Sally the dog, where I used to work at Gettysburg. The dog was known to follow the soldiers along, lick their wounds, eventually was killed in battle. Talk about how much we attach to mascots and associate that. And I think that's the kind of stuff that gives it the spirit today with schools for your alma mater.
Well, thank you for joining us for this fantastic history lesson.
Cheers.
You can find more of this segment on firstsearch4.com/greatday following the show. And we got to circle back really quick to the Tigers. Mizzou Live officially launches tonight as part of our new Matrix Midwest. Sports on 4 will be doing an hour-long pregame show starting at 6, along with a half-hour-long post-game show. Again, all of that on Matrix Midwest. You can find it channel 32 or Spectrum channel 186. Laura, who knew? I didn't.
I didn't either. And he brings the energy. We're ready for this sports season.
So fun.
Thank you very much, you two.